I'm going to focus on being louder. Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Without being awkward and weird?
I think you should talk like this. All right, let's go.
This is the Moon & Co. podcast, where we help you take back control of your well-being and regain your mental clarity. Join our growing community for resources, support, and guidance at moonandco.com. This podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice.
All right, episode 4. Welcome back, everyone. We're here with the Moon & Co. podcast, and today we are going to talk about what is mental health coaching. So if you've been following us on social media or gone to our website or even heard some of our other episodes, we've talked about this briefly, right? This is something that Nick has gotten certified in through Headspace and their training institute. So we're super excited about this, but I think I didn't really know much about it. I mean, generally, right, it's slightly self-explanatory, but not really when you actually get into it. So we thought it would be good just to do an episode talking about this and how it can hopefully help you or someone you know with their wellness journey. So I think first, if maybe Nick, if you want to talk about your mental health journey and how it kind of brought you to getting certified in this.
Yeah, be happy to. So my mental health journey, it's been quite the up and down path, right?
As most people, I think.
As with most people, yeah. No, absolutely. Totally agree. So I mean, I think the best place to start is just sort of, some background in me is that I had some trauma in my past, in my childhood, that really wasn't discovered until I had an unblocked memory at like age 30, or actually a little later than that. Mm-hmm. And so like I had a lot of, I suffered from a lot of anxiety, paranoia, depression that I think stems from childhood trauma that really wasn't realized until I got a little bit older. So there were a lot of things that I was battling that I really didn't fully understand. Mm-hmm. And really it manifested itself, primarily in a lot of pressure that I put within myself, just a lot of, intrusive thoughts, a lot of negative self-talk, which really pushed me in my career. It really pushed me as an individual to strive for better, to strive for more, to want more. And there was a part of me that developed this really unhealthy relationship with this negative self-talk in combination with seeing success in my career rather. And I almost like didn't really want to let it go because it was like this strange thing that made me feel terrible, but also I was seeing myself achieving dreams, goals, things, experiencing things in life that most people don't have the opportunity to do. And so I kind of relied on it as my source to help me succeed, really. Mm-hmm. And it was really my only driving factor. Fast forward to our daughter being born and all that we experienced with her health journey, I think I reached a point where everything just kind of combusted, and it was just so much pressure and so much lack of confidence and so much depression that I just hit a rock bottom. I hit absolute rock bottom. And I remember having a conversation with you at one point and just being really honest with you and saying like, I need to change something because the way that I'm living my life right now is going to end in tragedy. Like there was just like no way to avoid it. And I didn't really know what that tragedy was going to be, but I knew that I was mentally in an unstable place and it wasn't going to end well. And so through a lot of self-exploration, I've always been grounded in spirituality. I grew up Catholic, went to Catholic school for 12 years before I, and then around probably like sophomore, junior year of high school, started really studying theology at a deeper level, studying philosophy at a deeper level, but I've always been very grounded in spirituality. So I went back to that and kind of really dove kind of head first into a meditation practice. Studied with a company called Turgar, who's phenomenal. Mingar Rinpoche is his organization. which I would highly recommend. So I went through a workshop with them, a 6 weeks program, to really, really understand mindfulness at a deeper level. Around that same time, was working with an integrative health practitioner, did some emotional code work, which then kind of helped unblock this memory. And then from that point forward, it in combination with the strong meditation practice that I sort of established for myself, I really started to understand the nuances of mindfulness, really started to understand why my mental health was the way that it was, and really understanding things like being the observer of your thoughts instead of treating your thoughts as though they are your reality, and learning how to differentiate those things. Had the Headspace app, was doing guided meditations through the Turgar program, and we'll do a separate episode specifically on meditation. But one of the things that was sort of a light bulb moment for me was that I had been meditating a lot using breath work, which I think that's what most people is kind of introduced to meditation with their breath work and with mindful breathing and principles of that nature. But through the Turgar program, they sort of teach you about objects of meditation as sort of a higher level, not even a higher level, but just a different perspective on it. So you don't have to use breath as the object in your meditation. You can use sound, you can use visuals, you can use visualizations, like all these different things. So I really gravitated towards sound as the object of my meditation. Then when I started to feel better and I started to really feel well and I started to really get a handle on how I could bring mindfulness into my day-to-day life, I just saw such a drastic change and just felt so much better about myself. My exercise routine got better. My dieting got better. My relationship with you got better. My relationship with our daughter got better. Like, everything improved. And I was like, we had already been talking about, starting a business and starting a way to kind of help people deal with the challenges we were dealing with our daughter. And, and you went down the integrative health path, and I found Headspace's training program, which is this concept of mental health coaching, and signed up. And in a lot of ways today, I feel like, and we'll dive into what mental health coaching is a little later in the episode and the specifics of that training and all of that. But I think, like, sitting here today, one of the things that's just so eye-opening for me is, like, I feel like a new person. I genuinely do. And there's a concept in Buddhism, and that there's the whole concept of reincarnation isn't necessarily that your physical body reincarnates. Like, that is a huge component of it, but there's a theory that incarnation also can be within one single human experience, so that you could actually live multiple lifetimes within one soul, as one soul being, if you will. And I really feel like I've hit that. Like, I feel at 38 years old, I feel in some ways like a toddler that's just starting to explore the world, and just, like, super excited to help others go down that path, because I know how dark of a place I was in. And when you think about people that are in a bad mental health space, you think about things like depression, you think about things like panic attacks, you think about things like anxiety, you think about things about substance abuse, and, like, run down the list, I was at, sort of the highest degree of kind of all of those things. And so to look back now at my life, or look at my life as now, and just have a completely different outlook and just have a completely different approach to life and perspective is just been such a powerful experience that, as much as I can, and as much as I feel comfortable with, like, I want to be vulnerable, and I want to talk about my experiences, and I want to encourage others to embrace that and understand that those thoughts and those feelings and those dark times are things that are manifested in your brain. They're not necessarily, yes, there are likely external conditions that are causing those, like 100%. It's not like, hey, this is all on you and this is your fault.
Right.
Because there are definitely stimulations, there are definitely things that, like, can make you feel that way. But at the same time, your perception to those events and the way in which you talk to yourself and you observe those thoughts has a huge impact on a much larger degree of your well-being.
And I just want to touch on one thing you said of these things are in your brain, right? Happening in your head. But I think there's a distinction of, like, there's this phrase, right? Like, oh, it's all in your head. And and it is so frustrating and so infuriating. Like, so I know what you're saying, but I think
No, it's a
like
good
it
distinction.
is in your head, but but like Nick said, it's not because you're doing anything wrong, right? It's not your fault. It's not that it's in your head, you're making it up, right?
Right.
Your brain is actually pushing out these signals to make your body, cause you to be anxious, cause you to have a panic attack. There's an underlying reason why, right? It is in your head, right? But it's not your fault and you're not making it up, right? And I think that's the distinction is like Nick says, your world, your environment, the stresses in your life are what is the catalyst, right? But it is happening in your brain, right? But it is causing actual physiological impacts, right?
Oh, 100%.
And I think that is something that is super important to this process of mental health coaching, is to get you to realize like it is within your control in a lot of ways, right? Like in a lot of instances, right? Like learning to calm that and learning to work with your body and learn your body at a deeper level is paramount to this. But I think, I've heard people tell me stories, right? People we know and whatever, like, oh yeah, and they just said it's all in my head or it's all in their head. It's like, well, that's not really the right way to approach this, right? You're making people feel like they are crazy, right? And it's not that, right? It's that there's a reason why this is happening to you, right? And you need to uncover it and dig in and figure out what that is.
Yeah.
And not just be told that it's in your head, just don't think that way anymore.
No,
that's not how it works, right?
I appreciate that distinction, and I'm glad you said that, because that was my intention of what I was saying.
Yeah.
And totally agree. And I think it's an important sort of anecdote to that point. When I realized that I hit my bottom, I was on a work trip, and I had been doing a ton of meditation. This was, I had already done the Turgar program. I was like feeling much better. For me, work trips have always been a source of anxiety for me. They've always been and I think for most people, they're an uncomfortable thing, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I went on a trip, and I could not stop the sympathetic nervous system from just being in complete overdrive. And I was meditating. I was as calm and clear as possible, but like the tightness in my chest, the upset stomach, the clammy hands, the just that irritable, anxiety-driven feeling, not wanting to socialize, not wanting to leave my room. I could not get that to stop, no matter how much I meditated, no matter how much I told myself, hey, like, you're okay, like, this is going to be fine. And there's a really two interesting premises from a scientific standpoint as to what kind of causes that. One, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this a lot, and he sometimes gets criticized for kind of pseudoscience and whatnot, but he is a medical doctor. He comes at things from a scientific approach. I think his research is pretty sound. That being so, and he has this principle of once you reach a certain point in your life, your brain already goes on overdrive. It's like a computer program. And so regardless of what's going on or how grounded you think you may be, there are things like past trauma that you may or may not know about, like past trauma that you may or not have processed, or you think you have processed, but it's actually still stored within your body, right? Your body just goes into these responses. So for me, if I went on work travel, that was going to be my physical response.
Yeah,
and it didn't matter
absolutely.
how clear I was in my head or how strong my meditation practice was. Like, that was how my body learned to respond to that stimulus. And through meditation, through mindfulness, through some other techniques, you can rewire your brain. You can create new brain synapses. And that's one of the most interesting things about meditation, is that it's one of the few areas in life where you actually can allow your brain or observe your brain sort of communicating with its conscious and its subconscious mind. And that's how you can kind of retrain your brain. He actually has a program called Retraining or Rewiring Your Brain, I think it's called, where he talks about this principle of sort of resetting and reestablishing how your body responds to those external stimuluses. The second thing is when your brain is when you're having a response to something, and you're in this state of anxiety, you're in this state of panic, right? And you are working on trying to curb those physiological responses. people think, and I thought for a long time, I'm not going to say people, I thought my approach to handling it was, I'm going to, in the same aggressive internal talk that I've trained my brain to do, I'm going to just tell myself how wrong I am about this and why my response isn't right and why I have nothing to fear. And I am going to rationalize and provide so much logic to my brain that it's going to have no other response than to go, oh, okay, everything's fine. And what actually happens is it makes your anxiety attack or your panic attack worse, because your body has now been trained to be in this fight or flight response. And your body has said, okay, I have an external stimulus that is causing me to feel anxiety. And now my conscious brain is telling me, no, that fight or flight response isn't right. That's not how you should respond to that. And your brain just goes, I don't know what to think.
Right.
And everything gets worse.
Now I'm really confused.
Now I'm really confused. Exactly. So there are actual, scientific things that are happening within your body. So like, while your observation of your thoughts and how you talk to yourself about those thoughts and how you handle those thoughts is sort of in your own head, there is a lot of other things going on scientifically that are not within your direct control.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's very true. Do we want to talk about coaching next?
Yeah, I think we can go into coaching. Yeah.
What is mental health coaching? Like, what is the goal? I think just to follow up on your last point, right? Like rewiring your brain, like, and digging in again, right? That's like our biggest thing is digging in. Like the goal is, and what you did a ton of work on is digging in, looking inside to figure out what are these things that are making me feel this way and how can I not change them, right? But it's processing, right? Like you said, it's not throwing it away, pretending it didn't happen. It's processing it. But
yeah.
So if you could just give an overview of coaching and what the goal is.
So mental health coaching is a service that allows you to really dive into the areas of your life in which you want to improve. And so, people are familiar with therapy. Where therapy differs from mental health coaching is that therapy is really diving into all the specifics of your situation, your experiences in life, how you deal with that, how you cope with that, your upbringing, your environmental stresses, all of these things, and really trying to figure out sort of why you respond to those things in the way that you do. There's also, another method is also like medications, right? You're dealing with depression, you're dealing with anxiety, you're dealing with, any number of mental health conditions. And you can be prescribed medications that can basically offset the chemical imbalances within your brain. Mental health coaching is sort of a supplemental service to those things. So essentially what mental health coaching does is it's not a replacement for any of those things. It's not a, it's not a this or that. It's really, but mental health coaching really looks at the individual, and it really looks at, when someone goes into coaching, what are the things that they want to achieve? Where are the areas in their life where they need help, where they need guidance, where they need support, and helping them establish a plan to get themselves into a better place, to have a better quality of life, whatever that may mean to them. And the big mantra with mental health coaching, and what was really instilled in me in the training program, is that the client is the expert in themselves. And so you don't come in as a coach and say, this is how, this is what you need to do these things and you'll be better. The coach really is your GPS. So just like a GPS, you get in a car and you tell the GPS the GPS knows where you are, and you tell the GPS where you want to go, right? And the GPS just says, okay, well, these are some steps that you can take to get to that destination. But the GPS can't drive the car for you. And so I think, from the coach's perspective, I really enjoy diving in and talking with people about their challenges, about their problems, and sort of helping them compartmentalize and put tangible action plans in place to help them achieve those goals. And one of the really cool things about the training program is that the way it was structured is that half of the session was, we would do like these weekly 3-hour sessions, and half of the session was focused on just theoretical knowledge, right? It was like slides and just information around psychology, around human behavior, around all of these things. Then the second half of the program was we would actually break out into groups of 3, And one person was the coach, one person was the client, and one person was the observer. And we would just rotate and kind of observe different coaching, different sessions. So as part of the program, one of the things that we had to do was have these recorded sessions that were viewed by a Headspace employee that wasn't our teacher, that wasn't our sort of guide through the program. So it was the first time they were seeing our coaching session. We had to coach somebody that we didn't know. And you actually volunteered to do that. So I'd love to hear kind of what your experience was like coming in brand new as a client.
Yeah, it was interesting. I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I knew the process that you were doing every week in your class, and I knew the kind of the premise of it, but we hadn't really done any sessions, you or I. So, it was a good, I think, experience for the coach that I worked with, right? To get just like an outsider view of it. But it was very interesting. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I think the goal, and it was positive for me, was to get the person to feel comfortable, which she did right away, right? I felt very comfortable with her, and just learning a little bit about me, but letting me lead the conversation. And I think that's important, is I am the expert in me, right? Like, this coach is not the expert in me. I mean, if I work with them for a period of time, then they'll become more knowledgeable of me as a person, right? Same as a therapist would, right? Or anyone that you meet, I guess, in your life. But I think we focused on kind of just an overview of getting to know each other. And then it was, is there a goal you want to work on, right? So we kind of went through, I told her a goal that I was working on, and we really talked about, well, why is this goal important to you, right? These are things she asked me, and really let me drive the conversation. Again, getting me to reflect on myself and think of things in a way that maybe I hadn't before, right? Like, so what are the benefits of this, right? What would you get out of it if you were successful? And then what are the things that are holding you back from actually completing this goal that you're saying is important to you, right? So it was really interesting. It was nice to get to just kind of talk freely and just not put too much pressure on it, right? Of just, this is something I've thought about, but these are the reasons why I haven't done it. And just for context, the goal that I had was trying to get up earlier in the morning, right? Which I do a few days a week, but I want to do it consistently, right? Because as, a working mom, right? And just this that we're also doing with a business, right? Time is not a huge luxury that we have these days. So getting up early to do a workout, to when I was, doing my studying, to work on the business, right? To meditate, to go for a walk, something for myself, get some work done early in the morning so that if I know I have a busy day. So all those things I think have always been important to me, but I just cannot consistently do it, right? So we really talked through, well, what are the things you could do right away? What are the things you could do? How long do you think it could take to do this? What would you need to do to get to that goal? And it was very interesting, and it was eye-opening, and I can see how we just did one session, right? And so I think one session is helpful. It was helpful to set that foundation for me of, these are the things you're saying you want. These are the benefits you can get from doing them. Here are the blockers. Here are the steps to completion, right? And I can see how if I met with her every week or even every 2 weeks or once a month to do an update, right, then that would hold you accountable, right? And that would make sure that you're doing it. And after I met with her, I think I did it the next 3 mornings. I said, I'm going to get up early I'm just going to do it. And I did it the next 3 days, and then I fell off, right? And I have done it since, but again, not consistently. So I can see the benefit of having someone help you to really be accountable to yourself, because I think that's an issue that many people have, right? Even if you have a good family support system, that was one thing she said, is who could hold you responsible? Could you have an accountability buddy or something like that? And I said, well, to be totally honest, I need to hold myself accountable, right? Like, no one else, this really doesn't affect anybody else, and I can't really expect someone else, besides me and maybe a coach, right, to do it. Because at the end of the day, like Nick said, if I have all the directions, the car's gassed up, I've got everything I need, I have to drive the freaking car, right? Like, I have to drive the car. No one else can drive it for me. And I think that is super helpful. And the other thing that she did that was really impactful was between each area that we focused on, she would reiterate back to me kind of what I had communicated. This is so that it kind of cemented it, because I think sometimes when someone asks you a question, you kind of go off and think about it and you're reflecting, but you're talking, but are you really absorbing it into your own psyche, right? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, the principle that you're describing is called reflections. And essentially what it is the human mind, when you say things, right, you're kind of free flowing,
Yeah.
you're saying ideas or whatever. And you do have an emotional response, but by and large, your primary focus is to communicate the thoughts that are in your head.
Yeah.
And so a reflection allows the client the opportunity to sort of hear their own words back to them and respond to it.
Yeah.
It's really helpful for the coach, because sometimes you'll say, well, what I hear you saying is X, Y, and Z. And it does a couple of things. Like, one is that it establishes trust and rapport with the coach, that the coach is listening to you, right? Which is important. But the second thing is that it allows the client, allows the person to have the opportunity to hear what they said back and be like, yeah, no, like, that is a good point. And yeah, no, I do feel strongly about that. Or like, well, no, like, that's not really what I meant. What I really meant, and you can dive in a little further.
Right.
So it gives you that sort of beat to sort of, hear your own words back and allow you to have an emotional response to those words that really isn't present when you're communicating them verbally.
Yeah, and I definitely noticed that, and I think that was very helpful. So I can see that is a very effective tool in this process, for sure.
Absolutely.
And I think the last point I want to touch on is, you talked about like, this is different than therapy, or this is different than some traditional things. And I think, again, like, the core of what we're trying to do here is that we are relatable, everyday people that have put a lot of effort and time into really learning as much as we can, and now we want to give back to people, right? We're not therapists, we're not doctors, we're not trying to be, and we're not saying that we're better or worse than any of those people. I think the goal for this whole brand is to give people the opportunity to, one, know that there are other options out there, because some of this stuff just isn't talked about, and to hopefully connect with us, that we're a real family, just two people that, have completely different careers, that have decided we want to focus, even if it's a very small section of our lives, to helping other people, right? And building this brand that I think a lot of people can relate to. So I'm super excited to talk about this, and I think hopefully that helped people that have never really heard of this, or understanding what the goal is, right? How it kind of functions, and just our journey with it too.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. Thank you for sharing. And obviously we've talked about this a lot, off camera, but thank you so much for all your support and guidance through that. And I think, one thing that is so crucial when you're in a tough mental health space, or a bad, headspace just in general, is normalizing it and talking about it, and just not trying to fight it, right? Because I think that's, for me, what made things so much worse was, when I finally was able to say to you, like, hey, I'm having paranoid thoughts, or like, hey, I'm having some really intrusive thoughts that are scaring me, like, and just being able to talk about those things and normalize them. And now, to your point, like, you talked about the most recent work trip, and like, I agree, it's different because it's a different group of people, but at the same time, like, I've gotten to the point where we were at dinner one night, and like, I was talking about using ashwagandha tea, and I was talking about, like, oh yeah, like, I use ashwagandha tea because I have social anxiety, and like, I didn't feel like I needed to in any way hide that, or in any way, like, be embarrassed by that, or be afraid of that, or feel like this is going to make me look like a less competent individual, or what have you. And I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Is naming the emotion, understanding the emotion, because to your point, and you hit the nail on the head, you're not going to stop those thoughts. If you are predisposed to having a mental health condition, you're going to have that condition. Like, it's not magically going to go away. It's not magically going to go away with medicine. Medicine's going to make it, may make it easier, because it's going to offset the chemical imbalance, and may subside the symptoms. Therapy is not, cognitive behavioral therapy, like, yes, it's going to be helpful. It's going to help you get to the root cause. It's going to help you process the trauma. It's going to have amazing benefits. It's not going to make the trauma go away. It's not going to make your subconscious mind forget about the experience, right? And it's kind of the same thing with this. Like, with mental health coaching, the goal isn't to get you to a place where if you come in and you say, I have anxiety, or I want to lose weight, or I want to get to the gym more, or I want to wake up earlier, the coach is going to go, okay, here's how you do it. See you next week. Just do these things and you're going to win. No, it's okay, well, how do you feel like you can solve this problem? For me, that's a lot of deep reflection. That's a lot of studying philosophy. That's a lot of this concept of the observer and the observer of thoughts. That's not going to work for everybody. Some people may come in and be like, what's going to help my anxiety? What's going to help my anxiety is training for a marathon and running every day and just like physically exhausting my body so that my brain doesn't, like, cool, then do that, right? And everybody's going to be different. And I think that's what's really, really been amazing about learning about mental health coaching, going through mental health coaching. What I've enjoyed as a coach, seeing those like aha moments within individuals of just like, oh yeah, like that's how I can make this goal a reality for myself. And these are the small bite-sized steps that I can do over the next week, month, year to get myself to that goal. It's really exciting. It's really powerful stuff. And, I'm personally so thankful for, both Turgar and Headspace for helping me to get through this journey and to be on the other side. And I'm ecstatic about the brand and the business that we're doing. And you said it's a small part of our lives, but I mean it's a pretty major part of our lives, and not just the business, like mental health, meditation, spirituality, integrative health, eating well, like it becomes a lifestyle. It really does. And I'm just thrilled to be offering the service. I cannot wait to help people at a larger capacity. And we're super excited about the offerings that we've got going on. And, if you're struggling with mental health, if you're struggling with anxiety, paranoia, substance abuse, career uncertainties, any of those things, please reach out. We offer a free consultation, no obligation, no judgment, no long-term commitments. Reach out. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to help. If it means we want to work long-term together, fantastic. If it just puts some ideas in your head that you need to kind of marinate on and can research on, fantastic. If there's anything that we can provide for you, free resources, services, articles, topics, any of those things that you think our perspective may be helpful, reach out. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Until then, we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.